Hello, Matthew Williams here with a quick tip to show you how to make any old computer that is doing a lot of blue screening a lot of the time. Blue screening and crashing when it gets warm. And it probably never used to do this when it was first purchased, but it seems to be doing it later on. And then you kind of think to yourself, well, it's got to be software, it's got to be a virus, it's got to be something, and then it crashes and then it's kind of like losing files because it's kind of writing stuff and then it crashes right in the middle of writing. So it's kind of getting like that. And you think, well, it's got to be the motherboard. Is it the memory? You've tried everything. You've taken a stick of memory and you've one at a time, you've taken all the sticks out, one at a time you put this one stick in, then you put the second stick in on its own, then you put the third stick in on its own, then you put the fourth stick in on its own, and it seems to be booting up on all four sticks, so it doesn't seem to be the memory. And then you try one stick in slot 2 on its own, on slot 3 on its own, on slot 4 on its own. You make sure that one of the slots isn't dead, and it doesn't seem to be dead. Now, what else could it be? Well, you've got these little things here called the North Bridge and South Bridge, yeah? That little puppy there, which kind of sitting there, it's got a heat sink on it. Now, what you need to do is power the machine up, okay? Feel. Now, I take no responsibility for you statically shorting out your board. And so basically, touch the best thing to do is touch it or wear an anti-static lead. But hey, just touch something metal and then just kind of feel. Are things cool? Now, if they're just lukewarm, that's fine. But if they're really getting quite hot, like this one was, this thing down here was getting red hot, absolutely red hot, and then bing, blue screen. Okay? So what I've done here is I've taken a fan, and you can get fans like this out of other old machines, or you can buy them. Okay, I've taken a fan out of one of these machines, and I keep a whole selection, as you can see, because fans, if you're trying to repair PCs, fans are really kind of one of the most important things you can have. Right, where was I? Yeah, selection of fans. You get everything from processor fans, case fans, more processor fans. They're always worth keeping, these things, so I cut them out. And even if you've got a dead power supply, take the power supply apart, chop, take the fan out, keep them. They're always useful. Now, the fans usually come in 2 varieties. Well, let's say 3 varieties for the more modern. They've either got 3 pins, 3 wires, like this. And we're only interested in red and black because that's negative and positive. And the 3rd wire, or in some cases, we should say the 4th and 5th wire, are to do with tachometer. So we're only interested in the ones that are going to make the fan spin, which are red and black, positive and negative. Okay, red being positive. So red will go to red, black will go to black. Okay, now don't get fooled by this yellow wire here. Okay, I mean just kind of ignore this wire like it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Okay, now when we come over to the motherboard, we will see Molex connectors, which are like this. Now, the Molex connectors will have, whoops, sorry, I'm not even pointing at the thing. Red, which is the low voltage, which is 5 volts, and yellow, which is the high voltage. Now, this is why I told you to ignore the yellow color that coming off this, off the fan. Just cut it out, pretend it doesn't exist. Just apply what I'm telling you about the yellow. The yellow on these Molexes, yeah, is 12 volts. The red is 5 volts, and the 2 blacks are obviously the negative, okay? So, if you wanted to wire this up, like I said, ignore the yellow. Imagine it doesn't exist. It's not there. Pretend that doesn't exist. Red will go to red on the Molex, okay? So red will go to red, black will go to black, and that will give you a 5 volt spin. Okay, now these are rated for 12 volts, but if you pump them up and plug them into the yellow, so red would be going to yellow, which is 12 volts, black would be going to black. It spins incredibly fast and it's very noisy. Okay, so I tend to run a lot of these fans at 5 volts. It's perfectly fine, and they spin nice and quietly instead of like that. Yeah. So yeah, basically that is the trick. That is the trick. Just ignore any other weird colored wires coming off the fan. Just go for the red and the black. Okay. Now to test a fan, all you have to do is come over to a working PC. Yeah. You can do this with the power off, and you have to get a Molex, like I said. You have to find the red and the black. You have to strip off the wires, bare them down, and tuck them into one of these. Now you can test whether a fan is working by turning the system on, and you'll see the fan spin. And when the fan spins, it's usually the side with the sticker on that the air is blowing towards. But just in case you want to be sure, you can test it and then spin it upside down. Usually it's a good idea to test a fan that way and that way to see whether there's any fan noise. And a lot of these fans, when I go to test them, I find they come out of systems where they've been making noise. So they've gone in there and they need to be thrown out. So the bottom line is test the fan first. Test it both ways. If it makes any noise at all, any grindy noises or little tapping noises, just throw it away. Get another one. But anyway, once you put a fan inside, I tend to do this with cable ties, okay? I put the cable ties through the holes like that and like that. And I just sort of suspend the fan. Basically, it's like a spring mount then. You see how it works? It's just like a spring mount. And you can actually, you know, I've got two cable ties there, one going down, one going up, and that's suspending it that way. And I've just got one going off in that direction and one going off up here. And between all four of these cable ties, it just suspends. Nice little sort of spring mount suspension there that holds that fan in place. The airflow is downwards, and that's just enough. Oops, just enough to get onto this processor here, which is known as the South Bridge. And guess what? It's absolutely icy cold now. Absolutely cold. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Now, I'm going to stress test this PC, which was crashing when it was getting hot. I'm going to run it for a couple of hours, and I bet you that machine is not going to crash anymore. And it was crashing a lot. So, there you go. Like I said, when this machine was new, it could probably take that heat. So that processor would get up to heat and it would be fine. But over time, all that heat's kind of worn that little processor down to the point where it's a bit unstable at heat. So you keep it cool. You probably give this PC, you know, it'll run for years. It'll probably run for years after you do this. Now, two key places, of course, you've got the South Bridge, North Bridge, and you've got the memory. Now, memory gets warm too, and if you have to cool the memory, then cool the memory. And as you can see, in a big Dell PC like this, they actually pay great attention to, these are ECC memory sticks. And you see, you've actually got your own little fan unit here to cool the memory down. Yeah, as well as case fans blowing it through, but they actually specifically cool the memory because these are high performance machines. And well, you know, for many years, you're probably not going to be able to see it, but in here, there it is, there's my fan, and right behind that fan are all the sticks of memory. And guess what? It's pointing at the sticks of memory and also at the North Bridge. So I've moved it further back, so it's not very close, it's just pointing. It's got a wide dispersal, and it cools the memory and it cools the North Bridge. And that is what you want to do to have a happy PC. That's a top tip. That is an absolute top tip. If you have a graphics card, see this graphics card here? It didn't have a fan on it. It had just a couple of fins. Okay, so I took that off, and I got a little case fan, as you can see here. Little case fan, stuck it on, and cable tied it round. Cable tied it all the way round, put a bit of heatsink paste on there, and I'm running that on 5 volts because guess what? With these little fans, when you run them on 12 volts, they go wee. And when you run them at 5 volts, let me put the mic right up to it now so you can hear how quiet this is. Yeah, that's with it right next to that fan. Okay, this is the noisy fan, which is the big one. Okay, and I'll stop that one so you can hear. Okay, so I stop that one, and that's the noise of the graphics processor fan. And this one here, I'll let it go now. This is the one in the middle, and the Intel one there. So you can hear it's really quiet. It's really, really quiet. Okay, because I'm not running them at 12 volts and I'm not running them whizzing really fast, which is the key secret to success of keeping things cool by having the fan close enough to make a difference. You see, if the fan is too far away, it just won't keep it cool. But by having the fan close, you can spin it slow. Okay. Whereas if you have the fan further back, you need a lot of fan speed to get that air to move. But having the fan close, spin it slow. So top tip, send me fucking money for my top tips. But that's never going to happen, is it? So enjoy for free my secret tips of how to keep your PC going for years.